There was a morning, I think it was a Thursday in late October, when I sat down at the kitchen table with my coffee and realized the house was completely quiet. Not peaceful quiet, just empty quiet. And I thought to myself, when did this happen? When did the middle of the week start feeling like this? My wife Eleanor passed 11 years ago now. The kids were long gone by then, of course. Grown, busy, living their lives the way you want them to. I don't say any of that with bitterness. I say it because that Thursday morning, I finally admitted something I'd been walking past for years without stopping to look at it. Nobody needs me at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, or a Thursday, or most mornings really. And that's not something anybody warned me about. They warned me plenty of other things. Cholesterol, knee replacements, drive slower in the rain, get the will in order. But nobody sat across from me when I was 62, looked me in the eye and said, "Arthur, the hardest part isn't the body, it's the morning." I spent most of my working life as a civil engineer, 34 years, bridges, drainage systems, road projects that took years from blueprint to pavement. I was needed. Not in a dramatic way, I wasn't saving lives, but every morning I walked into that office, there were problems that required me specifically. My desk had papers on it. My phone rang. Someone down the hall knew my name and needed an answer by noon. When that ends, it ends all at once. One day you're relevant, the next day you're emeritus, which is a polite word for finished. I didn't understand what I was losing when I retired. I thought I was gaining something, time, rest, freedom, and I did gain those things. But I didn't account for what got taken in exchange. And what got taken was the sense that the morning had instructions in it, that I had a place to be, that somewhere someone was waiting on me. Without that, the day has a different weight to it. Not impossible, just different. Heavier in a way that's hard to explain to someone who hasn't felt it yet. I remember my first winter after retiring, January, February. I would get up at 6 because my body didn't know better. I'd make the coffee, sit at the same table I'm sitting at now, and watch the streets slowly get light. By 8 a.m., I'd already read the paper, washed the dishes, and run out of things with a deadline. The whole day stretched out in front of me like an empty field. Which sounds wonderful when you're 45 and exhausted. When you're 67, it starts to feel like something else. I called my son Daniel once, he lives out in Portland, and I asked him how work was going, just to hear about problems that needed solving. He talked for maybe 10 minutes and then said, "Dad, you should get a hobby." He meant well, he's a good kid. But a hobby is something you do with leftover time. It doesn't fill the hole that work leaves. Not that particular hole. What I didn't fully understand then, and what took me a few more years to really sit with, is that purpose and identity had been the same thing for me for 3.5 decades. I wasn't just an engineer, I was the engineer. That was me. And when the job went away, I didn't just lose the job. I lost the answer to a question I hadn't even realized I was constantly answering. Who are you, and why does today matter? That's a hard thing to lose at 65. Maybe harder than it would have been at 45, because at 65 you're also watching the future get shorter at the same time. I'm 82 now, so I can say that plainly without it feeling morbid. When you're in your late 60s, early 70s, you start doing this arithmetic without meaning to. You subtract your age from some reasonable number, 85, 90 if you're optimistic, and what's left is not what it used to be. For most of your life, the future was this enormous open field, more time ahead than behind. That tips somewhere in your 60s, and it tips quietly, without ceremony. Nobody announces it. You just notice one afternoon that you've lived more Christmases than you're likely to have left. And that's not a tragedy, but it changes something. The way you look at a photograph, the way you say goodbye after a family visit, watching the car back out of the driveway. There's a particular kind of grief that belongs to these years, and I don't think we talk about it honestly enough. It's not just the people you lose, though Lord knows those losses accumulate. My wife, my brother Frank, who went in 2019, 3 close friends from the engineering years, gone in less than a decade. My parents had been gone long before that. By the time you're 75, you've attended more funerals than weddings by a fairly wide margin. You know where the funeral home is without looking it up. That's just the math of a long life. But it's not only the people, it's the places too. The diner on 5th, where Eleanor and I used to go on Friday nights, closed now. A cell phone store in its place. The neighborhood where I grew up, so changed I drove through it 3 years ago and couldn't find my old street because everything around it had been renamed or rebuilt. The version of my city that existed in my memory, that's gone too. And then there's the version of yourself that you keep grieving a little. The one who could carry the groceries without thinking about it, who used to take the stairs automatically, who could stay up past 10 without paying for it the next day. That goes slowly, almost gently, but it goes. And somewhere in your late 60s, you realize the body you've been living in for decades has started making decisions without fully consulting you. It's not weakness exactly. It's more like a negotiation that shifted in the other party's favor. I don't mind telling you I wasn't graceful about it at first. I kept pushing the way I always had. Move furniture I shouldn't have moved. Climb ladders longer than was sensible. Not because I had to, but because I was proving something to no one in particular. My doctor called it stubbornness. Eleanor, when she was still here, called it something considerably less polite. What I eventually understood, and this took longer than I'd like to admit, is that the stubbornness wasn't really about the ladder or the furniture. It was about not wanting to become someone who needed looking after. Someone whose children glanced at each other across the dinner table with that look. The one that means we should probably talk about Dad. I've seen that look. I've given it myself years ago when my own father was in his late 70s. So I knew exactly what it meant, and I wanted no part of it. But here's the thing about that, and I mean this in the most honest way I can. The fear of being a burden, which is real and I understand it, can make a man lonelier than he needs to be. Because sometimes refusing help is just another way of refusing connection. Refusing to let people close enough to see you as you actually are. There was a period, maybe my 71st and 72nd years, when I was probably not doing as well as I let on. Months where the house felt very large and very quiet, where I'd go 3, 4 days sometimes without a real conversation. I was eating fine, sleeping fine, managing fine. But fine isn't the same as okay. I didn't tell my kids. I told myself I didn't want to worry them. But if I'm honest, part of it was that I didn't know how to say it. I didn't have language for what I was feeling. It wasn't sadness exactly, not depression, just this low-grade heaviness that sat in the house with me, like weather that wouldn't break. What eventually helped wasn't a program or a plan. It was a neighbor named Bud, who was the most casually persistent man I've ever met. He knocked on my door one Saturday morning because he said he needed someone to look at a pipe in his basement. I knew enough to know it was pretextual. He wanted company. Probably so did I. We spent 2 hours down there talking about nothing much. Baseball, the road construction on Elm, his daughter's new house in Arizona, and when I got home, I realized something had shifted. The air in my house felt different. Just from 2 hours of ordinary conversation with an ordinary man. I think about that sometimes, about how little it takes sometimes, and about how long I'd been too proud to need it. Now I'm 82. I've had time to look back on those years, 65 to 75 or so, with some distance. And what I see when I look back is a decade that nobody adequately prepares you for. Not the money people, not the doctors, not the books. Everyone prepares you for the body changes. Nobody prepares you for waking up one day and not quite recognizing the shape of your life. What I wish someone had told me then, what I'd tell you now if you're somewhere in that stretch, is simply this. What you're feeling isn't failure. It isn't aging poorly. It's a real transition with real weight to it. The roles that gave you shape for 50 years are loosening. The future looks different than it did. The people around you are fewer. That's a genuine reckoning, and it deserves to be treated as one. Not fixed, not rushed through, just understood. Because there is something on the other side of it. I won't oversell it. I won't tell you it's better than what came before, because some of it isn't. But there's a particular kind of quiet that becomes available to you if you stop fighting all of it. A morning cup of coffee that you drink slowly because you can. A phone call with your granddaughter that lasts longer than it needs to because neither of you is in a hurry. Small things that don't feel small anymore. I sat on my porch last summer, late evening, and watched the light change over the elm tree in the front yard. Just that, for maybe 20 minutes. And I thought, I don't think I ever did that before. Not once in all those years of being busy and needed and useful. I never once just sat and watched the light change. There are things I miss. I won't pretend otherwise. I miss Eleanor every single day. I miss Frank. I miss the feeling of being indispensable somewhere. I miss having a reason that woke me up in the morning before I could think about it. But I'm still here. That still means something. I'm not always sure what exactly, but something. And maybe that's where it ends for now. Not with an answer, just with that.